banks of the Cumberland River, where many soldiers met their fate. We search for the history of that great struggle known as war between the states. We search for the relics in the hollows, we search for the relics on the hills. Respect for the men who fought and died here is why we search, and we always will.
Good morning, this is Quindy. We're on a hallowed ground here on the Hartsville, Tennessee battlefield. Tennessee Trio hadn't been hunting much lately, but we're going to get back into it because hay is being harvested and also winter wheat, so we'll have a hunt video for you, but I thought you might enjoy a little history of the Hartsville battlefield today. The Confederacy around this area was in dire need of a victory. The Union Army had already occupied Nashville and close towns to Hartsville. Gallatin, Hartsville, Castaic Springs had a camp, and Carthage had a large force there. So John Hunt Morgan convinced Braxton Bragg to let him assemble a task force and move against the garrison here on the Hartsville battlefield, which is a large U.S. installation here, which consisted of the 39th Union Brigade of about 2,400 troops. So we're going to take a little tour of the area, and I'm going to tell you a little more about what happened, and you can maybe understand some of our local history. So we're going to move to another location. Okay, we're looking across the Cumberland River. You see the road that goes over there. Morgan left about 10 miles south of Lebanon, Tennessee, and had about a 25-mile journey to get here. He brought Kentucky cavalry, he brought Kentucky infantry, he had the 9th Tennessee Cavalry with him, and he had two artillery stands with him that had a total of 8 guns. And he set 2 up on the other side near the left of that road there across the river to fire on the Yankee camp, which was located in the center of the picture there with the foliage and everything. You can't see it, but you're on higher ground than they were in the U.S. camp. So he left over between Murfreesboro and Lebanon, started over here, and then he crossed the river at 4 different places. Bennett's cavalry, 9th Tennessee, was crossed up east of here up the river, and their purpose was to take Hartsville and guard the Gallatin, Lafayette, and Castaic Springs Road from there, and the Carthage Road, which had a very large, like 7,000 man group there at that time. So they started, it was December the 6th, 1862, passed through Lebanon, picked up a few volunteers. The local citizens came out and gave them food and helped them out, and they marched all night. It was temperature in the teens with 4 inches of snow on the ground, and they had to march on over here. They crossed the river with much difficulty. The river was a little higher than it usually was because of rain and so forth, and so they came on, and now I'm going to show you where they came through the valley. I'm standing right on the Confederate line where it formed. The artillery was right on the hill of there where you see the house next to the river, and then the infantry is right where I am, and to my left is where the Morgan set up most of his cavalry that wasn't in town, capturing Union soldiers there. There was a Yankee picket on the hill here, and in the woods in the center of the picture there was a picket camp, and Morgan came up this hollow here from a road to the west, and they galloped up through here and formed all along this ridge line here. And this was the camp. The camp was about 400 yards to the southeast. So when they got here, Morgan was pretty smart. So the pickets that were here, he dressed up some of his scouts as Yankees in dark clothes, and they approached the pickets, which were not suspicious, and then they took out the pickets, disabled them, quieted them down, and then he was ready to make his attack. It was just getting daylight. Still some of his force wasn't quite in place because they had difficulty crossing the river. And the infantry crossed and had two little boats furnished by Mr. Dickerson, who was a local citizen. The cavalry, of course, swam across, ice cold. Some soldiers, he had to leave about 35 on the riverbank because they were suffering from hypothermia already. The officers let them build fires, and they did not get to participate in the battle. But the city of Hartsville is right the other side of that cell tower there. And so we set the scene here. Now we're going to move over to back to where the Union camp was. All right, we're back at the Union camp of the 39th Brigade, and they consisted of the 104th Illinois and the 104th and 108th Ohio, all those infantry, the 2nd Indiana Cavalry, and Company 11th Kentucky Cavalry. They numbered over 2,000. Morgan had 1,300 to 1,500 troops with him at that time, and where I was standing a while ago above the river, he was in that general area overlooking this camp. The tent lines ran left to right, right to left through here at a diagonal, I know, because of the trail of relics that were in here in the tent lines. And what happened is they formed on the hill on the back side of that ridge, and the Union forces were just getting up at that time. They just had 2 cannon here from the 13th Indiana, Section 13 of Indiana Artillery. So they were getting up. It's cold, snow on the ground, getting out of their tents, stirring around, making coffee. And when they got out, a black servant to one of the Union officers looked up and saw the rebels on the hill right after one of the pickets was suspect that something was wrong because his brother was on picket duty. And he saw the people right up to his brother. He didn't look right, and he claims to have fired the first shot at the Battle of Hartsville. But anyway, Morgan formed on the hill, and when he looked down on this camp, his scouts had said there weren't but about 1,200 or 1,300 Union soldiers in this camp, and he claimed that the tent lines were all like half a mile or so long. So he knew. He told his officers, said, "You better make short work of this. We've got to whip these fellas in 2 hours and a half or less, or we'll have 6,000 of them from Castaic Springs on our back." So his goal was to attack, capture guns, ammunition. That was the whole purpose of the raid, and get back across the river before any reinforcements from west of here, about 8 miles west of here, came. So the battle itself just lasted about 1 hour and 15 minutes. The rebels came down off the hill. At one point, they kept forcing them back toward the river bluff, which is the trees in the center of the picture. But they tried to break out to the east one time here. Colonel Chenault arrived just in time to push them back. Colonel Moore saw he was greatly outnumbered. And in 1 hour and 15 minutes, and most of that was artillery fire back and forth, where the battle was over. Morgan was at that time a colonel, and his strategic planning and execution of this surprise attack, which is lauded as the most successfully executed raid of the war between the states, he was promoted by Braxton Bragg to Brigadier General and remained so throughout the war. So a little on the Battle of Hartsville. This is private property. You have to get permission to hunt and any of the surrounding property. Some people will let you hunt, some people won't, but it's a piece of history and a very peaceful place. That was a lot of hand-to-hand combat and so forth. 58 Union soldiers were killed here on December 7th, 1862. 21 Confederates, and the 2nd Indiana Cavalry and the Company 11th Kentucky Union Cavalry all escaped on horseback and listed as missing, but when the battle was over and Morgan had all his 1,400 or so prisoners across the river, he had in fact moved out, including the cavalry, 1,834. So a little about the Battle of Hartsville. We'll be back with some digging videos before too long, so hope you enjoyed this. See you later.